Nigeria just passed new tax reform bills, and this is a big deal because
It's more like the turnaround that we are all been waiting for.
Nothing of this magnitude has been done in the history of Nigeria, pre or post independence.
But what does that really mean for you, for the economy, and for the businesses that form the backbone of Africa's largest nation?
From an individual perspective, what the tax says is that if you are earning between 0 to 800,000 naira annually, you're actually exempted from tax.
Over 90% of small and micro nano businesses will no longer have to worry about paying corporate income tax or charging VAT or even deducting withholding tax or paying PAYE for their employees.
Zero VAT, zero value added tax on essential consumptions, food, medical, transportation, education, accommodation, housing.
In fact, the government is taking new measures to make it easier to file for taxes, to encourage compliance.
The modality to actually pay tax has been very, very cumbersome. But now what they're trying to do is, now that it's digitalized, it means that you can do it in the comfort of your house.
With inflation at a 28-year high, and fears from Nigerians that this is just another tax grab without accountability, can the government really turn the tide around with these new reforms?
So these old laws that we operate currently, they date back to pre-colonial era.
Yes.
And we inherited it from our colonial masters and we really haven't done much to them. Many of them are no longer fit for purpose, they're no longer relevant. New economies have emerged and the world is drastically different today than it was in 1960 when we got our independence. So our tax system has not evolved as much. So it became a problem for growth, it became a problem for prosperity, it became a problem for investment and business expansion. And therefore, if we continue on that path, it doesn't matter how hard we work or how hard we pray, our growth will be limited and restricted significantly.
For decades, Nigeria has struggled with one of the lowest tax to GDP ratios in the world, hovering just above 10%, compared to a global average of over 30%. This means the country relies heavily on oil revenues and borrowing to fund schools, hospitals, and infrastructure.
There are a lot of people earning a lot of money, but yet they are not paying taxes. The burden is on little few that are paying the tax. You understand? And that's why most people have been saying that the problem with Nigeria is not increasing the tax burden on people, but in bringing a lot of other people into the tax net.
With that in mind, we set out to say primary objectives will be, number one, people-centric. Can we stop taxing poverty? Can we protect small businesses? Can we allow large businesses to become larger? Number two, we want to be efficiency-driven. So are there areas where we are inefficient? Maybe how we collect taxes, how government spends the money, and so on and so forth. And then number three is to be growth-focused.
If you look at it from where it started from, it was actually 4 bills in one. We have the Nigerian tax bill. What that one catered for is the restructuring our tax system overall. And then we have the tax administration bill. What that one has to do is how we administer our tax. You understand? Our tax is being paid, the modality, moving from a physical way of actually paying tax to more like a digitalized way. And also we have the Revenue Service Establishment Bill. And that is where we build actually metamorphosize Federal Inland Revenue Service into revenue service. And finally, we also have the Joint Revenue Board Bill. And that's what it's about, the fact that actually bringing every tax board together into one. What the tax says is that if you are earning between 0 to 800,000 naira annually, you're actually exempted from tax. But the flip side of it is that there's now adjustment to personal income tax. So it means that it's progressive in nature.
This is what it used to be before now, that once you're getting up to 300,000 naira, you are paying 7% tax. Now, here, that is from now, if you're earning 800,000 naira monthly, you will not pay income tax at all. Everybody has said that, and there's a gradual increment on who pays what and what you pay as your stage, on your career continue to rise.
In South Africa, the top 1% of their population alone pays 90% of the personal income tax. So this is what we're now trying to do in Nigeria. If you want to promote equity, fairness, and have justice in a society, you must have progressive tax system that protects the poor, collect fairly an amount from the middle class, and allow the top of society to pay a little bit more.
Section 51 of the bill exempts an individual, another interesting one, from paying tax on the proceeds of the sale of his residential property or land. Quite interesting. If you have, for any reason, you got broke or whatever, and you're selling your residential property, you are not going to be taxed on that amount.
And for me, it's a way to actually redistribute resources. So it simply means that you are taking from the high-end earner and to actually create infrastructure for the poor. And what that will mean is that it will help the poor to grow, and the poor will now move into that bracket where they can also give back to the country. When you look at small-scale business in Nigeria, a lot of them barely make up to 20, 30 million, but they still need to pay tax. And the problem is not only pay tax, they have to pay a lot of taxes. And so what this tax reform has done is that they are now exempted from tax.
Over 90% of small and micro nano businesses will no longer have to worry about paying corporate income tax or charging VAT or even deducting withholding tax or paying PAYE for their employees.
When you look at the company income tax, over time, it's 30% that company pays as tax. So effective by the end of this year, so they are moving into 27.5% for companies. And also by year 2026, they are moving into 25%. So what it simply means is that companies are now paying lower tax. So it means that they can think of ways to actually invest funds, whether to actually remunerate their staff better, whether to actually reinvest into the business, whether to also look at other ways to actually use that as a CSR to actually further create impact.
7.5% is retained as the value-added tax.
These laws also provide what we call zero rate of VAT on essential consumption. What does it mean? It means any traces of VAT in food, in education, in medical and health care is now removed completely. So we should see prices of those items come down. In addition to that, transportation, accommodation and housing is exempt from VAT.
What this will do is that it reduces cost to an average individual, and what that also would mean is that it increases the real income of people. So what my 100,000 naira can buy before, my 100,000 naira can now buy more.
Then we see a change in the distribution of VAT nationwide.
VAT is distributed across the 3 tiers of government in this manner. The federal government gets 10, local governments get 35%, that is the 774 local government areas in Nigeria get 35%, and then the states, 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory get 55%. It's getting a bit more interesting. We are heading somewhere with this. And now, for the distribution across the states, there's a sharing formula. All the states in Nigeria will share the VAT, 50% of the VAT equally. Now, 20% will go to states according to their population, and then 30% will go to states according to the consumption. That is where the VAT is being generated.
The impact will be better for states, more revenue to states. And also with the local government autonomy, with the full implementation, that goes directly to local government. It simply means that we can now take governance closer to the people. And it simply means that you don't need to wait for state government to get things sorted in your jurisdiction. The local government chairman could actually rise up to the occasion because now they have more firepower to be able to actually do that. So I think it's good because it will truly help development.
There is a transitory period of 6 months as the new tax reforms are set to kick in January of 2026.
I think what government is trying to do is that give people enough room to get sensitized, give the authority room to actually set up the regulatory bodies and also put the necessary things that they need to actually put in place, sync systems that need to be synced, and ensure that we are ready.
However, given the varying timelines and mechanisms for tax remittance across sectors, the full impact of the reforms may not be felt uniformly, and in some cases, may not be felt until as late as 2027.
So there's what we call preceding year basis when it comes to income tax. What it means is the money you make in 2024, you pay the tax in 2025.
2025, yes.
This is for businesses,
yes,
so because for individuals, you pay on a monthly basis. That's why we call it pay as you earn.
Yes,
yeah.
pay as you earn.
So value-added tax is also on a monthly basis. So these different taxes play out differently. The money you make in this 2025, you still pay the tax based on 25 rules in 2026. It is the money you make in 2026 that you now be under the new laws. So it's important.
Which
so
would now be
will now
in
be in 2027 when you are paying.
The modality to actually pay tax has been very, very cumbersome. I bet to say that a lot of Nigerians don't even know how to file their tax return. But now what they're trying to do is, now that it's digitalized, it means that you can do it in the comfort of your house.
These new laws require that government should be more transparent. There are requirements around the standard of reporting, the timeliness of those reporting, and making them accessible to the public. By the agencies like the Nigeria Revenue Service. There's a role for Ministry of Finance. Of course, there's the oversight function for the National Assembly that is more properly defined. So there will be improved transparency, certainly, under this new regime. In addition to that, these laws will promote Nigeria in terms of competitiveness. It's harmonizing the taxes that companies have to pay, reducing the burden of those taxes, and removing distortionary tax waivers and incentives. There is now transparent incentive regime, reducing discretion and subjectivity, and it's available to anyone once the conditions are met. We also have provisions that speak to wasteful incentive generally. These tax laws also address that.
Meanwhile, new enforcement mechanisms are being introduced to significantly reduce opportunities for tax evasion.
They've done it in a way that people will find it very difficult now to actually evade tax. They can actually track everything around you. And that's why everyone, you now have your tax identification number. So what it simply means that will be linked to your account. So your account cannot be reading hundreds of millions and you are telling the government that you are not making money. So there's something that is not adding up. You understand, at that particular point in time, maybe they will now have to write you to come and explain yourself better to them. So I think it's actually a very good one.
Because it's going to make tax evasion now more expensive, while simplifying voluntary compliance.
One of the primary benefits is a reduced reliance on external borrowing and a lower percentage of national revenue allocated to debt servicing.
At the beginning of the year, you draw your budget, revenue versus expenditure. And over time, we'll be operating more like a deficit budget where our expenditures supersede our revenue. At the end of the day, we'll need to actually visit the capital market to actually borrow, whether locally or internationally. But with this, what this will do is that it will reduce that margin of borrowing. And these are some of the metrics that foreign investors actually look at before actually coming to your economy.
In addition, the reform is expected to unlock funding for large-scale, sustainable infrastructure development across the country.
South Africa collects about 26% of their GDP in taxes. Nigeria collects, even just recently, we moved to about 13.5% of GDP. If everything works out well, Nigeria should be at a minimum of 18 to 20% of GDP. And that should translate to around 50 trillion naira in today's values. So which means, fast forward to another couple of years, that number should go up because we need to spend more in infrastructure, human capital development, and investing in tomorrow. We're barely struggling to pay salaries now and borrowing to do almost everything else. That's not sustainable.
Collectively, these outcomes would position the government to deliver more effectively on its obligations to citizens.
And also increase the country's GDP, increase the country's per capita income, and also truly allow the poor to breathe.
This tax reform, decades in the making, could bring Nigeria to a tipping point, securing sustainable revenue, ending over-reliance on oil, and attracting investors. But success depends on honest enforcement, clear public benefit, and digital transparency. Do you think this was the correct move by the government? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below.
I think what is most important is to remind ourselves that why this event of today is so important, the journey is just beginning. Writing the law, no matter how beautiful, no matter how transformative, no matter how innovative, means nothing if it is not properly implemented. So we are mindful of that. We are not going to relax. Mr. President has given us the charge that now is the time to move to implementation. And we are ready. We are prepared. It is not something we can do alone, even from the government side. It is something we have to do collectively. Private sector, public sector, civil society, professional bodies, tax consultants, everyone, including our international partners who mean well for Nigeria. This is the time to implement with sincerity, laser focus, and with purpose, so that when we look back in another 1 or 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, we'll say, yes, we came together as a people and did the right thing for our country. May God bless Nigeria.